There's a strange moment in every gardener's journey when a plant suddenly behaves far better than expected. It might be that one tomato plant that outgrows the others, or a pot of herbs that refuses to wilt no matter how inconsistent your watering gets. For me, that moment happened when I added worm castings. Nothing dramatic, just a small handful mixed into the soil of a struggling seedling tray. Within days, the plants changed in a way that didn't match their past performance, or the fertilizer labels I'd been using for years. They grew stronger, greener and more resilient than the ones that had been fed with store-bought nutrients. That experience sent me down a rabbit hole of historical growing methods and soil science. And what I discovered is the reason civilizations, from ancient China to pre-industrial Europe, valued worm-rich soil above everything else. So, before we get deep into the mechanics of why these castings work the way they do, I want you to stay with me for the next minute. Because once you understand what worm castings actually are, you stop thinking of them as compost or homemade fertilizer and start seeing them as the closest thing a gardener can get to natural, self-renewing plant power. You'll also see why people who treat gardening like a long-term survival skill trust worm castings more than any bagged product on the shelf. Let's get right into the real substance. The reason castings work so well begins with how worms process organic matter. Worm castings aren't simply broken down food scraps. They're the final product of a biological engine that has existed for millions of years. When worms consume organic matter, the material passes through a microbial chamber inside the worm's digestive system. It's colonized by beneficial bacteria, fragmented into stable humus, and enriched with nutrients in forms that plants immediately recognize and absorb. This is why worm castings are considered biologically activated. They're alive with the same microlife that historically helped forest floors regenerate endlessly. If you've ever seen a centuries-old woodland with rich, dark soil, that sponge-like earth is essentially worm casting-enhanced material that has been worked over by generations of soil organisms. This natural process is the same thing you harness when you make or buy castings. Plants respond because the nutrients are not locked inside raw compost. They're packaged in microbe-coated granules ready for root uptake. Most people think fertilizers work because they feed a plant directly, but worm castings work by transforming the soil itself. Their crumb-like structure increases aeration, improves drainage, and helps roots expand more freely. At the same time, the humic substances within the castings hold moisture like a reservoir, which means the soil stays damp longer without becoming waterlogged. This dual effect, airiness and moisture retention, mirrors the qualities that made ancient agricultural soils like the Nile floodplain or indigenous terra preta so productive. When you add castings to your garden bed or potting mix, the roots grow deeper and recover faster from stress. You'll notice plants that previously wilted during heat waves suddenly handle temperature swings better. In historical farming communities, worm-rich soils were known for staying workable even during drought or storms because the structure resisted compaction. Modern growers can achieve the same resilience simply by mixing castings into the top few inches of soil. One of the biggest problems with synthetic fertilizers is the way they dump nutrients into the soil all at once. Plants just can't absorb everything immediately, so the excess washes away, or worse, burns the roots. Worm castings work differently. The nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and trace minerals are all locked inside these tiny humus particles bound to microbial colonies. These nutrients only release as plants request them. When I tell people that you can fill a planting hole with pure worm castings and never burn the roots, they don't believe me until they try it. Castings naturally regulate nutrient release through microbial activity. This is why many growers use them for seed starting, transplanting delicate crops, or recovering stressed plants. It's also why ancient farmers who used worm-active soils reported harvests that didn't collapse after just a single good season. The nutrients stayed in circulation instead of leaving the soil. This is the part most growers overlook. Yet it's the reason many of my plants just stopped getting fungal issues the moment I began using castings consistently. Worm castings contain thousands of species of beneficial microbes, bacteria and fungi that colonize the root zone. Once they're present, these microorganisms crowd out pathogens, support nutrient conversion, and trigger a plant's natural defense systems. Historically, this is what kept traditional farms functioning, even when farmers didn't know the science behind it. They observed that soils rich in life produce sturdier plants, and modern research now shows they were right. To apply this benefit practically, you can work castings around the base of plants early in the season, mix them into potting soil for houseplants prone to disease, or brew a simple casting tea to use as a foliar spray. Plants treated this way respond with stronger leaf growth and fewer signs of infection. The real advantage is that worm castings work in every garden system. Whether you garden in raised beds, containers, no-till plots, rooftop buckets, or compact urban spaces, castings adapt seamlessly. A cup added to the root zone of a tomato seedling produces noticeable changes in colour and vigour within a week. A handful mixed into herb planters prevents nutrient drop-off. A thin layer around fruit trees improves water retention and nutrient cycling. Even if you don't raise worms yourself, a small bag of castings goes farther than any synthetic fertilizer you could buy. And if you do raise worms, then you're effectively producing your own biologically perfect soil amendment without relying on external inputs. That's a principle older than modern agriculture and still valid today. If you want more deep, practical guides rooted in real soil science and historical growing wisdom, make sure you subscribe to Botanical Bliss and share this video with someone who wants to give their plants the strongest foundation possible. Your support keeps this knowledge alive, and your garden will thank you for it.